Hey Sunsets, welcome back to another episode of Pillow Talk Mamas. I'm Anamari.
I'm Troy.
Today we have a spooky Halloween special for you all. We hope you enjoy it. Our first paranormal legend is the White Lady of Ireland. The tragic suicide of a mourning bride has left a sad and sometimes unfriendly specter at Charles Fort in Cork, one of Ireland's most famous ghosts, the White Lady of Kinsale. According to legend, the story goes one of the fort's soldiers married a local girl, and they stayed at the fort for their wedding night. The soldier had watch duty that night and, a bit drunk from the day's celebrations, fell asleep. Other soldiers in the fort found him asleep while on duty and, following the protocol of the day, shot him at his post. After
Whoa.
hearing about her husband's death, the bride flung herself to her death from one of the fort's walls. Decades after the tragedy, the White Lady was seen wandering through Charles Fort by soldiers and their families, especially children. Two sergeants were packing up some equipment when one man's daughter asked who the White Lady smiling at her was. Both men saw nothing, but the girl was adamant that a woman in a white dress had been looking at her. In another story, a nurse saw the White Lady standing over the bed of a sleeping child. Not all of her interactions with the living are friendly. Even into the first half of the 12th century, several captains recounted stories of being pushed down a flight of stairs by an unseen force. Charles Fort was built between 1677 and 1682 during the reign of Charles II as a fortress to defend against attacks from enemies approaching via the sea. William Robinson, who designed the Royal Hospital in Kilmainham in Dublin, is credited with the design of the fort. Charles Fort was in military use until 1922. It is now in ruins, but the bride can still be seen wandering the fort's walls in her white wedding dress. The White Lady, as the locals call her, has also been seen wandering the streets of Kinsale, where she lived.
Mm, interesting. So she, even though it's like decrepit, old, messed up building, she still wanders around. Like that's crazy. Like I know I've heard of spirits kind of living in limbo. So she's
Mm-hmm.
constantly in this limbo state of keep haunting these same areas, even if they're not there anymore. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm
That's
like, being seen mostly by children is like, you're an adult, I'm gonna push you down some steps. You're a kid, I'm just gonna watch you from afar.
creepy.
But people do say kids are more um, in tune to that stuff if you believe in it
Yeah.
because of their innocence. So
Yeah.
hopefully she's not out there hurting kids.
Hope not. Spooky.
Your turn.
So, my story, my legend is about the duendes.
Hmm.
So the duendes is known throughout Latin America, it's known throughout the Philippines and even parts of Europe. Sometimes they call them elves or goblins, but we're talking about duendes right now.
Okay.
Now they tend to live countryside or in the forest, and they can also be found in the walls of the nearby home. Now they are very, very annoying and they are just mischievous beings. They're little humanoids. So they look like little humans, little old ugly humans. And they like to misplace stuff or and pretty much just drive the homeowners crazy. Like misplace
Hmm.
like the remote. Like I know it's just here. And they would just like, nope, I moved it. Hee. So they're kind of jerks, right? And
Hmm.
they also have this habit of trying to be helpful at the same time. So they're known
Okay.
to try to cut the nails of unkept kids. And they would accidentally cut off a toe or a finger in the process because they were very clumsy creatures. So they try to be helpful, but I don't know if it's meant to be a mischievous behavior where it's like, I'm going to cut off your toes. Like, I don't know
I have no idea.
what their true intentions are, but they have been known to do stuff like that. But aside
Mhm.
from being like annoying and kind of mischievous, they can be very, very evil. There was
Mm,
this one time there was this girl with her cousins. They were out playing in the yard and came across a duendes that seemed very friendly. So they were just playing around, having fun. All was good until the little girl had to go home. And the duendes grabbed her and tried to pull her into the woods. And luckily, her and her cousins got away unharmed. But of course, that scared the little girl enough to like, I'm never coming back to this spot. Like she learned her lesson, like not to mess with the duendes.
yeah.
Now, in Filipino culture, there is a black and white duendes. The black one, of course, is bad intentions, wishes you bad ill, like it causes a lot of chaos. Whereas
Mm,
the white one can actually be considered helpful and is known to help the elder woman of the house. So that
mm,
could be something like helping her find things or like, just being helpful in general.
interesting.
To keep them away though, because at the end of the day, you don't want to find out if it's a good or bad one. So to keep it away,
Right.
in Mexican culture, it is known to, it is believed that if you keep dried rose petals and salt on your person at all times, it kind of keeps them away from you and can also help keep them away from the kids because they like to lure kids into the woods and stuff. And
Wow.
then also it says if you keep greenery and plants around your house, then they will be happy. They're happier with nature. So for that reason, they'll be happy and content with you and won't want to cause you any harm or be an annoyance to you. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So there's a way to keep them away.
It's funny in the beginning of you explaining that, it reminded me of Elf on a Shelf
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
because I didn't grow up with Elf on a Shelf. I learned about it like as an adult. I don't remember how
Yeah,
old.
same.
And they say that, you place it around the house or whatever, and your kids are meant to believe like, oh, you better be good before Christmas or whatever's going to happen. And they do mischievous stuff around your
Right.
house and move
Yeah.
things and take things. So when you mention elves and goblins, I'm like, shelf? I don't know why that
Essentially,
made me think of that.
I think that those legends actually will combine with the actual tradition of Elf on the Shelf. So
Hmm.
yeah, this sounds about right. I never
I
put the two
wonder if
together.
one came from the other
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
specifically.
I wouldn't doubt
And
it.
two, there's one in, I want to say Honduras. It's definitely somewhere in Central America where they
Mhm.
have a white and black version, like you mentioned. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
interesting.
I feel like wherever the Spaniard colonization was, they kind of have the same legends. Because, like I mentioned, Filipinos, yeah, the Filipino culture, and then the Latin American culture, like,
Hmm.
and then European, so it all kind of connects in some way. I think it has something to do with the
Yeah.
colonization. Oops.
Yeah. Our bad. So our next one is the Jenganger. I don't know
Mm.
if I'm saying that right. Gjenganger.
Oh.
The Jenganga in the Scandinavian tradition took on an entirely corporeal form and had no specter-like qualities whatsoever. In later Swedish folklore, a distinction is made between the traditional Jenganger and another type of ghost known as Gast. Whereas the Jenganger looked virtually identical to a living human, the gas was known to be transparent and or skeletal in appearance. I'm not entirely sure which one of those is more frightening
Mm.
because they're both kind of creepy.
Hmm.
Sometimes it also had sharp fangs and claws, thus making it impossible to see who the phantom had been while alive. And whereas the Swedish version of the Jenganger, unlike its counterparts in other Scandinavian countries, were usually said to be rather harmless, it was the Gast who was known to cause diseases. They were
Mm.
also known to cause accidents and scare people for no apparent reason other than they enjoyed doing so.
Okay.
In the Viking Age, the tradition of the violent Jenganger goes back to where they are present in many of the Icelandic sagas, among others. In this tradition, the Jenganger was a mortal creature. An example of this is Grettir slaying the Jenganger Glom with his sword. Do not ask me what those things are. These Viking age Jenganger were often called Draugr or undead. I'm probably butchering all of these pronunciations, by the way. And the two are likely to be different names for the same phenomenon. 1900s and slightly newer tradition, the Jenganger remains a violent entity, though in a less direct way, now becoming more of a disease spreader.
Mm.
These Jenganger would attack people with their so-called Dodninskip nip. Again, probably butchering that, but it's called the dead man's pinch.
Okay. Mm.
This would result in the living person's skin becoming sunken and blue where the Jenganger had pinched them.
Oh.
And this often led to disease and death for the afflicted person. The pinch was often administered when the person was asleep. Both the Huldrefolk and Noken were also accused of doing the same, using bites instead of pinches, often aimed at the victims' faces. This belief in beings attacking people in their sleep was used as a warning against going to sleep in specific areas, i.e., near the graveyard, mountains, or water, respectively. And I'm not trying to judge. I don't know who's falling asleep near graveyards and why. Today, ever since spiritualism came into Scandinavia around the beginning of the 20th century, the perception of the Jenganger has been gradually altered. Today, it mostly compares with the modern perception of ghosts, most often being ethereal in form and non-violent in nature. The word Jenganger is seemingly being used less and less. The contemporary word spokes or ghost having mostly taken over. That is our table.
So with the dead man's pinch, right? So when you said
Yes.
like it happens in a certain or it can happen like a pinch like in a certain spot, it reminded me of like gangrene. Like when you having a
Mm,
decay issue and it makes you sick, like that sounds like gangrene. But then you said that it can also appear on your face, and
yeah.
that and is a bite. And I'm like, that sounds like a recluse spider. So if you're sleeping by water or in a graveyard, you're gonna be near spiders.
Yeah.
So you're getting bit by a spider. So like I don't mean to
Interesting.
debunk it, but
Yeah. No, go for it. That's a
that's what
really
it
good
sounds like
point.
to me.
If you've seen brown recluse spider bites, they are nasty.
Oh yeah.
Like they literally eat your flesh.
Yeah.
So, well, I should say not the spider itself eats
The
your flesh, but
yeah, the
the
poison.
infection after the fact.
Hmm.
So that is a really interesting point.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, hold up, hold up, hold up. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All done?
Yes.
Okay. So my next one is from the Philippines called the Tanok.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a humanoid-like creature that likes to take a form of a baby. But in its pure form, it's a bald-headed, very ugly creature with the bloodshot eyes, pointy ears, sharp teeth, and is known to have uneven legs where the right one is a lot longer. Now, this deems it immobile. So,
Okay.
what it does is it uses the cry of a baby or it mimics the cry of a baby or a small toddler to learn its victims. Now,
Mm.
it's said that this Tanakh is the spirit of a baby that was born underground from its deceased mother. It's
Mm.
said that these are aborted or murdered babies who never received a name. And in more
Wow.
colonized perspective of the Catholic Church, it's said that these are the spirits of unbaptized babies.
Mm.
So there's no real source, or that there wouldn't be, right? It's a legend, but there's
Right.
no real agreement on what these creatures are or where they come from. But those are just speculations.
Okay.
Now, it will, like I said, use this cry to learn its victims and it'll just attack you. Obviously, it has sharp teeth, very
Mm-hmm.
vicious, very like just, it'll attack you. It's gonna pounce. Now, in order to kind of avoid these creatures, you want to stay away from the woods late at night. You don't want to be by yourself at any point in time.
Mm.
It just sounds like you should just stay away from the woods, period. Anywhere where it can hide, you want to stay away from. Now,
Okay.
if you so happen to cross paths with it, then you would want to wear your clothes backwards because it's said to be so humorous to them that they would just let you go because they would be laughing their butts off.
Oh my God.
Another one is that if you were to get close enough and you realize what you're dealing with, that you will want to give it a name because that's all it's seeking is a name. It wants an
Oh, wow.
identity. So I don't know how I feel about naming a spirit, but they say do
Right.
that to get away from it. So I'm like, cool, I'll do what I gotta do. And another
Right.
thing that is done, which is based off of Chinese influence, is to bang pots and pans, which is known to kind of send off evil and welcome good luck. So those are ways to kind of
Mm.
keep away from it. But long story short, if you hear a baby crying in the woods, it's best just to call the police, call the authorities. Don't go investigate it for yourself because it ain't worth what you're gonna get caught up in.
You know what's so sad about today's day and age? I'm I have that mindset like, what if nobody called for this thing that I saw or heard and I want to get involved, but via telephone because
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. Like you can't trust kids,
Mm-mm.
toddlers, elderly, and not always to say that they are being vicious. They might be being forced to do
Right.
these
They're the
things.
bait.
Right. But you can't trust babies, elderly, women. Like I've heard of
Mm-mm.
people like helping an elderly person to their car and then get snatched into the windowless white van right next to it and then they're just
Mm.
gone, or
Yeah.
helping out babies and you vanish and no one knows what happened to you because that baby was just used to lure you in.
Yeah. That's horrifying. But yes, if you hear a baby
Yeah.
cry, please call the authorities. Do not approach that baby. You never know.
Yeah. Also, not to make fun, but when you mentioned the legs, I immediately got an image of my in my head of this thing trying to walk with this like crazy hop walk.
That's funny.
So
This hobble.
he said it renders them immobile. I'm like, thank goodness, because the image I had in my head was horrible. So our next one, if you're done,
Oh yeah.
okay. Our next one is the Landers Theater. In 1909, Landers Theater is or was a four-story red and white multi-styled brick building with 525 seats. Is much beloved by the people of Springfield because of the years of entertainment it has brought to generations of folks. The Landers Theater offered nonstop entertainment throughout the eras that took people away from their troubles with top name entertainment and wonderful films. A stage director and co-technical director for Springfield Little Theater was at the Landers in 1990s working late one night when he saw someone standing in the lobby. Thinking it was someone who was able to get in through the front doors,
Mm.
he approached the man and asked him why he was there. He just stood there and stared at me. I said, "Sir, the building's closed. I need to ask you to leave." And he just stood there. So I started walking towards him. As I started walking towards him, he turned around and walked towards the auditorium, in which case I got a little angry that somebody was in there. So I followed him. I went around the corner to confront him, and there was nobody there.
Oh no.
People who spend time in this theater working, rehearsing, and directing have had boatloads of experiences with resident spirits who are here for a variety of reasons. What they have in common is love for stage performances, with perhaps one exception: the crabby one in the lobby who can't let go of her foul mood. I don't know what that's about. I don't know if she didn't get her ticket or if they didn't have her show that day and she was just pissed for all
Mm.
eternity. Some paranormal investigations must have been held there because temperature readings have been done on the balcony. There are much they are much colder in the spots where spirits make their appearances. The Landers Theater did have ghost tours during the months of September and October. Some hard evidence may have been caught, but it wasn't shared online.
Mm.
So
So it's
interesting.
an angry ghost who didn't get to see her show. And she's like, I will haunt this place for the rest of my days.
Right. I'm
Interesting.
like, I wonder if the other ones are nice or if they just like, ooh, in the hallways and then go off. And she's like the only one that's pissed for whatever reason
Maybe she got stood up.
for a date.
Like,
So
yeah,
many theories.
it could be anything. I'm sure she would not be upset over her show or not getting a ticket. Like, she got stood up. Somebody was supposed to meet her there and they did not show up, or she caught somebody doing something they weren't supposed to do.
Mm, I like that. We're going with that.
Right. The Boginka, which is a Slavic demon creature
Hmm.
that is considered to be maybe an unmarried mother, maybe
Okay.
a midwife, or maybe a mother that died before childbirth.
Mm,
But she's very vicious, very, very dangerous. She's known to live by the outskirts of like lakes and rivers. So, in like where all the brush and stuff is, she tends to be there. She
hmm.
has this long, dark hair, hairy body, just very unpleasant to look at. Oh, this old bag of bones. And
Okay.
she tends to wear a red hat with twigs in it. So if you ever see something like that, if you're visiting the Slavic areas, be wary that she gonna try to get you.
All right.
But she actually is a baby snatcher.
Mm,
So when newborns are born, she would switch them out for a changeling, which is what they call their babies. And these
okay.
changelings are deformed. They have lumps, they have crooked teeth, they are just very abnormal looking babies.
Okay.
And they tend to be skittish around other humans. They don't particularly take to the mothers. They are
Mm,
very gluttonous and are always asking for a feeding. And they also don't sleep very well. So these are signs that your baby might have got by the boginka and switched out. Now,
right.
going back on that a little bit, it is said that that could just be signs of like cerebral palsy and other illnesses
Mm,
from that were not really identified and really studied back then due to the era of time. So
right.
it could just be a baby with, deformities that were born, but they're perfectly human.
Hmm.
But back then, of course, they didn't have the science to really decide that. Now,
Okay.
in order to prevent your baby from being taken by the boginka, you would first tie a red ribbon around the wrist of the baby. You would use a hat to hide the baby's face from moonlight. And most
Mm.
importantly, never leave your baby alone when sleeping or at night. Always be with your baby. Don't bother changing that diaper. The baby's gonna be okay. Just keep an eye on the baby. Now, if by chance your baby is taken and switched out, you're
Mhm.
supposed to take the changeling, take it to an old dump, usually a place where they like dump like botanicals, like old brush and dead leaves, or maybe even like animal carcasses, not necessarily a regular dump where you take your trash, more
Okay.
like farming type dump.
Okay.
And you take the baby there, and with a birch twig, you're supposed to whip the baby. And also pour water over the baby's head from an eggshell and yell, "Take yours, bring mine back." And the Boginka will feel so
Wow.
bad for her own baby that she would say, "Here, take your baby back. Please leave my baby alone. You're hurting the baby." Now, I don't know what the pure reason is for switching out the babies. Like, I don't know if it's because she wants a healthy baby and she's like, "I'm gonna give you one of mine because mine isn't healthy," or
Yeah.
she's like, "I need my baby to be taken care of by who I think will be a good mother." Like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what the reasons are. I couldn't really find anything on it.
Hmm.
But definitely, I don't agree with abusing a baby to
I was just
verify.
thinking how many babies have succumbed to torture, honestly,
Hmm.
over this legend.
I know. It's horrifying and it's so sad because I
Yeah.
remember even here in the States, when your child was born with like a disability, they would get locked in an attic and they would be like shunned away. So whenever you had
Mm,
like company or guest over, these kids were not allowed outside of their rooms. Like, it was a secret. It was so sad if they were not sent off to an insane asylum, even though they weren't crazy, you know?
right.
So I guess I would prefer for them to be sent away to be cured by somebody else than to be abused for the rest of their
Yeah.
lives. Um, and it's hard too because it's said that a lot of times the changelings, they don't
Hmm.
develop an ability to talk or walk until later in life, if at all. So
Oh,
that means
wow.
that this baby, if it does come of age, if it does actually grow beyond its toddler years, which is said to be rare,
Hmm.
there's the parent could still think this baby is a changeling. This is not my baby, and completely neglect the child.
Wow.
Yeah, so
That's sad.
that is sad. Very, very sad. I don't think that people really follow that too much anymore, hopefully.
Good.
But yeah, that's the story of Boginka.
All right. It reminds me, well, it reminded me in the beginning of La Llorona,
Mm,
the whole, woman in distress. I think La
mm-hmm,
Llorona had I forget what happened to her kids, but I know she lives in like the waters, comes in and out of the waters, lives around
mm-hmm.
the waters, and will steal your children, I think, to replace hers. I can't remember what happened to
Oh,
hers, but it's like once she gets a hold of your kids, that's it.
that's
I
so
want to
sad.
say there's a movie about it on Netflix as
There
well.
was a movie out about it. I never got to see it, but I definitely remember there was a
Uh,
movie coming out about it, or
yeah,
had came out.
I saw it actually before having ever heard of the legend. So
Ah,
it was a good, I mean, it was a good watch if you're into, horror films and things like
yeah.
that.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Our next tale is the Night Marchers of Hawaii. The Night Marchers are ghostly apparitions and a band of beings who move with purpose to the beat of primitive pounding drums. Some say they are armed spirit warriors en route to or from battle, toting archaic weaponry and clothed in decorated helmets and cloaks. Other accounts tell of high-ranking alii or ruler spirits being guided to places of high importance or to welcome new warriors to join in battle. Perhaps these restless souls are looking to reclaim rightful territory, replay a battle gone awry, or avenge their own deaths. Some say the night marchers are searching methodically for an entrance into the next world. Night marchers are said to roam through very specific locations and are often recognized by their raised torches and repeated olis or chants. Although there have been a few scattered reports of daytime marches, these apparitions appear to be mostly active at night and are said to march on certain nights designated by the moon. And although the night marchers allegedly float a few inches off the ground, some local accounts tell of seeing mysterious footprints in their path after they have passed. The most common description of the night marchers legend can come from any person who has lived in Hawaii for several years. There are a group of warriors marching in death in a haunted procession. Their announcement strikes fear into the hearts of those who bear witness and comes in several forms. The sound of the pu or conch shell, the pounding of distant drums getting closer, the music of the nose flute, the sound of stomping feet, a line of torchlights traveling along a path. One might even feel the earth shake or catch the scent of sulfur. Some have said that they've witnessed a column of mist moving across the land. If you are in their way, you should run. If it's too late to run, you must lay prone and cover your head. Shut your eyes tight, chant your lineage, and pray that an ancestor walks among the dead to speak for you. If you have no one there amongst the ranks willing to claim Nau, then your life is forfeit. With no ancestor to save you, then you may hear the call of Oia, I believe. This is the order to let him be pierced. Despite their fearsome reputation, the Hawaii night marchers are an important part of Hawaii culture and history. There are, are a reminder of the island's rich past and the brave warriors who fought to protect their land and people. So if you ever find yourself in Hawaii during a night marcher event, keep your wits about you and respect the spirits who have come to march through the night. So, interesting fact about night marchers: if you are a big kid or if you have kids, there is a story that is loosely based on the Night Marchers. I believe it's also available on Netflix. Um, and I want to say it's called Ohana. It's Ohana something. Can't remember the name. I watched it with my kids who are very young. And I'm like, this is not, it's going to be too advanced for them. but there was so much adventure in the movie as they're, hunting for treasure and things like that. The night marchers come out and they did exactly that. They lay down on the ground, they shut their eyes tight, and they're supposed to like hope and pray that these night marchers go past them. So there's a little uh switch in the movie that I won't give away. But yeah, apparently it's a very popular, well-known legend in Hawaii.
Yeah, I want to say that there was a show or whatnot, like one of those like paranormal investigation type shows that actually covered this, and I've
Uh-huh.
forgotten about it. So then when you brought it up, I was like, oh, I think I remember that. I remember that because like it was like almost like a not a campsite, but it was like like cabins or something where off the shore or something like that, where people would
Mm-hmm.
go and then they would hear them and then they would take shelter there or something like that. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember the exactness, but it sounds very familiar. So that's cool that it came back up. That's interesting.
Yes, yes. They had that in the movie too, like the mist that rolls in and the line of torches because they're marching in procession. It was actually very, very interesting to like see it and then come across this legend. Like, this is a good one for our episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely was. Definitely. I love hearing about other people's culture and like
Oh yeah,
like the native Hawaiians and stuff. They have such a rich culture. So hearing about that, it's like, oh, it's not necessarily it's paranormal for sure, but it's like it's
right.
not a bad thing either. It's very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, like it, like
Agreed, agreed.
it.
Your turn.
Ooh, I got
Ooh.
the Slavic Kikimora.
These names.
The Kikimora. And the Kikimora, she can be good, she can be bad. It all depends on the homeowner. So, if the homemaker
The
of the
house
home,
clean. Just kidding.
the house ain't clean, she's
Oh,
gonna
am I
hunt you.
right?
Yeah,
Oh wow, I was
if the house
joking.
isn't clean, she's gonna hunt you. If the man is being lazy or abusive, she gonna hunt you. If your
Mhm.
kids ain't disciplined, she gonna hunt you.
Get them kids right.
Get them kids right. That's gonna be your downfall. Get those kids
Get
right.
your man right. Look, the man, yeah, that could be done. The kids, it depends.
Yeah, gotta check them, gotta check them. So she always takes the form of a female, so don't forget that. She can take the form of a beautiful girl, an old lady, or even a family member.
Mm,
But in her natural form, she can take parts of different animals to be her being. So she can have a pig's nose, chicken feet, and goat's horns. And she's
okay.
known to live behind the wall of the stove or in a cellar. Luckily, cellars aren't really a thing anymore unless you live in Europe.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Behind the stove does not make me feel better though. Because
Yeah.
who's moving their stove?
And she is known to make the noises of like a mouse rambling or ravaging for food. So if you hear
Mm,
like pitter patter and stuff like that could be the Kikimora.
okay.
Yeah. So the way she hunts is that she can sneak through the keyhole of the door, which luckily, again, most places don't have keyholes, but she would sneak through the keyhole of the door.
So you mean like skeleton key, like old
Yeah.
school?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm sure she's adapted to the modern ways and it's like, bet, I
Okay.
got you. I could go under the door, not a problem. And she would then sleep on the chest of the sleeper, sorry, sit on the chest of the sleeper and try to strangle them. And this is actually how the Russians got their concept of sleep paralysis in their folklore.
Mm,
So she would do this virtually every night to try to get you. So it's said that in order to protect your children, for example, those naughty, bad kids, they recommend that the child sleeps facing the window
okay.
or to mark a cross on the pillow. Now, for adults, it is said that you should do a prayer poem to help protect your soul from the Kikimora. And it's also known to have a broom upside down by your door, which for some odd reason can keep her away. I'm not 100% sure how, but I think it's just
Okay.
one of those traditions that kind of stuck around. So that's what they would do to keep her at bay. There are different types of kikimori, which is the plural of kikimora.
Okay.
And you have one that
I
actually
was
likes
going to
to
take your word for it.
She likes to brew beer, which is pretty awesome. So from the water of the creek, she would brew beer, which I think is really funny.
Okay.
Is another Kikimora who comes from the swamp, and she likes to haunt homeowners for fun, just for fun.
Okay.
So there you have it, the Kikimora.
She is an interesting one.
Very
I
interesting.
I'm not feeling that stove wall and that keyhole thing. Like I don't know why those two specific things. I'm like,
It's like knowing that you can hear her is creepy in itself,
yeah.
and then you can also see her in pretty much in any form. And then additionally,
Oh yeah, the
most
body
people,
parts, that too.
yeah, that will freak you out.
Yeah.
And the fact that she pretty much shows up as sleep paralysis, which is something a lot of people deal with, it makes it even creepier.
Yeah.
Like that's international right there.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I don't know if I've ever literally dealt with sleep paralysis, but I've had possibly sleep paralysis dreams, which were
Mm,
scary enough. It's like when you're having a nightmare and it's like it's odd enough that you know you're dreaming, but you can't physically pull yourself out of it.
right.
Is like I can't explain the feeling. It's such a disgusting feeling, and I personally can't really explain it. It's something that you unfortunately have to go through,
Hmm.
and hopefully don't ever have to.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully you never experience actual sleep paralysis because that ain't no joke.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's I know that I was dreaming for one particular episode, but I my dreams are very very vivid. So sometimes
Mm,
I'm not sure if it's like I'm dreaming what's around me that I'm hearing and just my eyes aren't open,
hmm.
or if I'm like full blown in REM sleep, you're having a dream, none of this is real.
Mm,
So prayerfully, I don't ever have to deal with that in its entirety. The dreams are bad enough. If it's
yeah.
worse than that, I'll pass.
No, it's definitely. I feel like it's a little bit worse. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
This. I wish you luck.
Thank you. All right. Our last tale is the Midnight Bus 375. Ooh. So the incident happened on the bleak night of November 14th, 1995, in Beijing, China. An old man, some say an old woman, was waiting at a bus stop for the midnight bus, picking up a conversation with the only other person at the stop, who was a quiet young gentleman and also waiting for the same bus. When the midnight bus 375, which is the last bus for Route 375 from Yuan Ming Wan, apologies, bus terminus, finally came, they both boarded on. The old man took a seat near the front of the bus, while the young man sat a couple of rows behind him. There was no other man along with them except the driver and a lady ticket collector. So we've got four people on the bus now. After a while, the driver spotted two shadows by the side of the road waving at the bus. The driver stopped, and when the doors opened, three people got on the bus. There were two men who were supporting a third man between them, holding him up by his shoulders. The man in the middle was looking disheveled, and his head was bowed, so nobody could see his face. There was also a dismal, calm atmosphere inside the bus. Shortly after that, the old man picked up a fight with the young man under some silly pretext of stealing his wallet. The altercation escalated and the bus driver forced them both off the bus. When they got off the bus and the bus zoomed away, the old man was no longer angry and he told the young man that he had saved their lives. So this fight was, you know, made up. It's like, I'm seeing something. I'm going to go pick a fight with this young man and we're going to hightail it out of here. Because The new three passengers did not have feet. They were floating.
Oh my gosh.
They were not living people at all, he explained. After that, they went to the nearest police station to report this unusual thing, but nobody believed them.
I mean, who would?
I was just about to say that. I'm like, if I was at the desk and someone came in and said that, I'd be like, somebody had a little bit too much. You might need to go home, sleep, you know, take a load off, come back in the
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah. I mean, plus it's
But
like my first thought if I saw a ghost would not be to call the police. Like, oh God, a ghost?
right,
What can they do? Plus the ghost is gone. What they gonna do?
I know. Track down the midnight bus, the last one at that. They're probably like parked at the terminal at this point, and the bus driver is gone for the night, and these three people are nowhere to be seen. And I'm not entirely sure how often those three men or apparitions appeared to
Hmm.
people, but that was very, very freaky.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was. And it was recent, right? You said 1995?
I believe so. It was, yep,
That is crazy. That's trippy. Like
95.
I believe stories like that when they happen after the 1990s. I'm like, I believe it. It had to have happened. I believe it. Ain't
I,
nothing that nobody could do about it.
yeah. What I'm most impressed about though is that this old man was like, yo, we got to get up out of here. And he handled it so calmly. Like, we're just going to create a diversion and we're going to slip off the bus.
Yep.
So hopefully, anybody out there comes across any apparitions, look out for your fellow people. If you
Mm-hmm.
can, get them out of there too. Which
Maybe.
reminds me of the stereotype of Black people. Like, you see somebody running,
You run.
you run.
You don't question. You don't like what
Always
y'all running
run.
from. Just run. Just get out of there. And then you could ask questions later, like, yeah, I saw a bug. Like, oh man, I ran 5 miles to get away from a bug. But I mean, you safe though, right? Because you never know.
Hey, you're safe from that too. I feel like it's the same thing at, like, I don't know, like a concert. Something happens. It's not like something obvious, like a gunshot, and everybody starts running. Like, don't trample each other and be
Hmm.
that human. But everybody get up out of there. And I'd rather find out that it was something like you said, like a bug. Get over yourself. Than for it to be something that I wished I would have got away from.
Hmm.
And you know, stuff happens.
For sure. For sure.
So these were our spooky stories to end out our October series for Pillow Talk Mamas.
Hmm.
Again, we are your hosts, Anamari.
I'm Troy.
And we sincerely hope that you not only enjoyed this episode, but our entire October series. We did true crime, paranormal stories, paranormal legends. If you have not checked them, what are you doing with yourself? Go back and watch them. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and please don't miss any of our future episodes. We are working on good stuff for you guys.
Hmm.
Peace, love.
Bye.